Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Now let's go to the rolling Flint Hills, home of the Cats and Dogs studio. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to the Powercat Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Ryan Gilbert, and the Cats and Dogs studio cam is up and running today. So you get to see both dogs, freshly groomed, lounging about like lazy-ass dogs do. This is their life. The treat jars to my right. Uncle Zach's here, which dude loves. Daphne's, of course, hiding. It's also thunderstorming, so Daphne's...
Yeah, she's in a special mood.
She's kind of like Gilbert. When it thunderstorms, he gets really scared.
I'm always scared.
You're always scared. Boys, boys. Right as we hit the record button on this, we had some breaking news. We'll get into that in just a second as Kansas State adds a quarterback to the quarterback room. Much needed experience now in that room. And a guy who's more game time ready to back up if something happens, particularly early in the season, to Avery Johnson. But we're sponsored by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you stop into the Fridge every time you come to Manhattan. It's just a wonderful place. Go check out their social media. Fridge Fridays are elite. The mics are awesome in that. Many mics there. And one Kevin. Not the bird from Up. This the owner's actually named Kevin. So stop into the Fridge at the corner of this and that in the town in which we live. And we're not going to start with questions from Wabash Station because right as we were getting ready to record, Taquan Roberson, committed to Kansas State. He is a grad transfer quarterback from UConn. He was their starter for most of last season. He started his career at Penn State as a 4-star recruit. Didn't pan out, to be real blunt. Transferred to UConn. Started a couple seasons ago, then was injured. And then he was the backup this past season, and that starter got injured. So I bet you he feels good about his chances coming in as the backup that he'll play a lot because he's seen it play out twice now at UConn. Solid numbers. I think when Ryan Wallace gives you an evaluation behind a paywall, you'll find out he's maybe not that great of a quarterback, that polished of a quarterback. He makes some mistakes, throws it okay, but UConn's offense has had him throwing the ball a lot of short patterns. So it drove up his percentage, and he did add up some yards with that. Capable of running. Again, their offense didn't call upon him to do much of that, but we will see. I think he's a very good pickup if you're looking for a veteran backup quarterback, Zach and Gills, in this current environment of the portal, finding a guy that has been a starter at the FBS level and was, a highly thought of recruit in any form is huge. And it gives them, at least a guy who's been around the block 4 times. And that's something there isn't much of in that room. I don't think if you compile all the quarterbacks, they've been around the block that many times. So welcome to Kansas State, Taquan Roberson. That's all I got to say. Any thoughts from anyone?
I think it's a good pickup for depth purposes. I think that if week 1 or week 2, if Avery for some, unspoken reason is out, I think that he's probably the option there. I don't know if he's better overall than Jacob Knuth, but at least immediately you do have a backup that has Division I playing experience, and he would be available immediately. So.
Yeah, I would imagine the hope is you get an early blowout. You can put your backup quarterbacks in and see what they got.
Yeah.
Then again, you might want to leave Avery in so he can get more game experience. He's only played 1 full game in his career, only has the 1 start. So maybe that game 1, you leave him in longer than usual. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how Chris Kleiman, Matt Wells, and Connor Riley approach that because they now have a capable backup. But will he beat out Jacob Knuth? He's got to earn that job. So we'll see. That's it.
Regardless of if he's number 2 or number 3, having a veteran that's been there and played football. I'm not saying Avery Johnson needs a mentor, but it's not going to hurt him to have somebody to look up to and go to for advice. I know there's plenty of tools and resources available to him, but having a guy that's been there, done that at the, in college football at a high level,
right,
it's not a bad thing.
You learn lessons, good and bad, and maybe he'll be able to communicate those to Avery. I know Avery will be open to anything. He's not a I know it all kind of guy. He absorbs everything he can possibly get into that noggin, and he's paying. It's turning out that works pretty well. He's a very astute learner. Let's get on to your questions from Wabash Station. If you don't know how this works, welcome to the podcast. It's a podcast for everyone to watch, but if you want to ask these questions, you have to be a member at Go Powercat and be on our VIP message boards, Wabash Station. And now with those questions, take it away, Zach Carlson.
From Wyatt Bollinger 15, when looking at the 2024 schedule for K-State, I can't decide if they have a better chance of going 12-0 or 8-4. Arizona, BYU, Colorado, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State could all be 49-17 final scores in K-State's favor, but at the same time, they could all be 31-28 final score losses for the Cats, and it doesn't feel like there is an in-between. What are the crew's thoughts regarding these specific matchups?
That's a really good observation, because the volatility is both in the fact that we don't fully understand some of those opponents you just listed, and even some of the Big 12 programs that had pretty good seasons last year. Will they replicate that? I think Iowa State, that end of the season game in late November in Ames, Iowa, the weather won't be worse than last year, but what we saw, though, was an incredible amount of focus from the Iowa State team, not just to win the game, but to kind of put a tarnish on K-State's season. So if they got a shot to absolutely disturb K-State's season, they're going to be all in on that. And they're going to be good enough where that might decide a spot in the Big 12 championship game. So there might be a lot at stake, but you're exactly right. We don't know what some of these opponents are going to be like. We don't know how the teams fit together. And we also just don't have a full understanding of how good K-State will be. I know people are optimistic that they'll be really good, but you just never know.
Yeah, I think he hits it right on. They could win all these games. They could, split a bunch of them, go 8-4. I think, I'm probably more down the middle at 10-2, saying, yeah, you can probably win most of these games, but I would be willing to bet that there's a couple games that are gonna, snipe the Cats and kind of come up as a surprise here. I think we're really confident going into this season. A lot of fans, us especially, we're confident in the schedule as it's, come to K-State. You avoid Utah, you avoid some tougher teams going into that Big 12 championship game if K-State's able to make it. But, there's still chances that K-State loses, especially that Arizona game. If they lose that, I think that you're more likely to go 8-4 than kind of close it out and rally the troops and figure it out. I mean, it's such an early game. They were a good team last year. They have a new coach, but I don't want to say that's the turning point of the season, but, and I don't want to state the obvious thing saying, well, if you want to go 12-0, you got to win that one, but that sets the tone for the rest of the season. I think if you can win that game on that Friday night, get it done, I think that the chances of, not losing those, the rest of these games against these opponents that are listed are really good, just from a momentum standpoint.
I know it's a cliche, but take care of the football, get a big splash play on special teams, get a turnover here or there. Those are the types of plays that in these quote unquote winnable games, right, that I'm sure K-State's expecting to win, that obviously could go the other way. They're not locks. Just play smart football. That's going to be, when it gets down to it, that's going to be the biggest thing to win these types of games, is just play smart.
You know me, Gills, I'm a value the ball kind of guy. Doesn't matter what sport it is, unless it's hockey, then that doesn't make sense. Did you just make a squeaky noise?
I accidentally bumped the
it wasn't me.
My water, and now there's condensation on the mic.
That's
I
good.
accidentally bumped it.
Down under the sea. Whether it's football or basketball, I want you to value the ball, value possession. And of course, that's amplified in football. One turnover could be the difference between winning and losing. So you nailed it, sir.
Next question is from KSU Royals Cat. Have we seen the end of redshirting freshmen in basketball due to players wanting playing time or transferring after the season? And do we ever see the NCAA start allowing players to play a certain percentage of games through the season in basketball like they do in football and still allow a player to redshirt?
Thanks for the DD topic. Yeah, I don't know why they don't. It's kind of silly. If it works in football,
every sport should have it.
Exactly.
Why not?
And a perfect example of that, Gills, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a third of your football game, so that's roughly 10 basketball games. How many basketball games did Michaela Rich play in last year? I didn't know the question was coming, so I haven't looked that
15,
up.
15 maybe?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, that might change your calculation about playing him. You're really close to redshirting. And but I'm also in favor of just getting rid of red shirts, just being done with it. You get 5 years. You get 5 years. And if you're injured for more than 1 year, we'll consider a medical. But if you're injured for a full year in your 5 years, well, you got 4. You're back to what it was. Yeah. It's just bad luck. And I think that's something they could do to really, because think of the number of people applying for medical hardships that has to bog down the NCAA a little bit. And if you get rid of that and just say it only happens if you have 2 seasons of medical absence, then I think you're going to make it a lot easier to manage. And this COVID bonus season was deserved, but I think just giving it a blanket all the way across the board to everyone has been a little silly. I mean, everyone now is getting that bonus season. And even if you were injured your freshman year and you couldn't play during the pandemic, you got the extra year. So but I have also seen that that's caused some issues, and it's made some teams more experienced when they shouldn't be. Just make it 5 years of eligibility. Go have fun.
Michaela Rich played in 16 games last season.
Might have been
which seems more than what you'd expect. It feels like he did not play in 16 games. I will say
exactly. That's wild. It felt like he went through a long stretch of not playing when he was injured or in the doghouse. I'm surprised he basically played half or more than half of the team schedule.
I mean, he played in 1 game since the Houston game.
Yeah.
He played at KU for 9 minutes, and that was not, it was garbage time.
Yeah, it was
9 minutes of garbage time.
That was, we're getting our ass kicked, go play.
So,
yep.
Talking about Buddy Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The last minute, I don't know, but what you guys were saying, because my internet's obviously having some issues, but if you're a player that wants to play in year number 1 and you're the type of player that's going to go out and transfer, if you're not getting what you want, you're not going to be redshirting, right? And that's kind of the way that things are going with the landscape of college basketball. Is everybody's entering the transfer portal. You can load up your roster via the transfer portal with experience and players that have won a lot of games, scored a lot of points. And so we'll see how this all works out. But like Taj Manning is one of the very few players out there that's going to be willing to redshirt, right? He did redshirt, and he's still a K-State Wildcat after not playing a whole lot last season. He's in it for the name on the front of the jersey, not the back, right? And there's just not a lot of players like that at this point in this world of college basketball. So we'll see where it goes. But right now, it's just interesting. You're not going to see many players that want to redshirt. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, you're not wrong. This is, I don't want to say problem, but part of the impact of the transfer portal. Now freshmen want to get their goods on display for everyone. Let everyone know this is my game. Only played 6, but I can do some things as they hit the portal. I think that's an unfortunate occurrence. I don't think kids jumping around from institution to institution is good for their academics, but a lot of these guys don't give a crap about that. And they just want to go someplace where they're going to make more money, get a couple more minutes of playing time, or they're going to get sent into the portal by, your handlers, whether that's family or an agent. And maybe they're wrong. Maybe you end up somewhere where you're not in as good a circumstance. Maybe the money isn't better, but there you are.
I think there's a trickle down too from the transfer portal. You get guys at the top that are older, have experience, and you keep bringing them in. When are your guys that you have on your roster that are freshmen, sophomores, what are they going to develop? And, it's mostly just a musical chairs thing. Everybody's going to end up where they belong in the market. I mean, the market is what it is. There's the transfer portal, there's NIL. Everyone, in theory, is going to end up where their market value matches and where they think they can get the most playing time. And until things change, I don't think that the transfer portal and, freshmen, playing 5 minutes and a game and playing in 16 games and not, having any experience that way. I think that, until the transfer portal changes, you're going to have those types of guys entering the portal thinking, oh, well, if I was at this institution, and played this much, I can go to an equal or better institution and play a little more. I think that some players probably overestimate their value and they underestimate the brand value of the name on the front of the jersey and not being patient and wanting instant gratification. So, until the transfer portal changes, I don't think that anything's going to change.
I would agree. Totally.
Fitz, you kind of alluded to Day-Day Ames, right? With the handler, the agent, right? And I guess we could address this. He committed to Virginia as of this morning. We're recording. And so that's just a case of the grass is not always going to be greener. When you enter the transfer portal, you think you're going to have so many schools contacting you and stuff. And some players find good homes. And then I'm not sure how much Day-Day Ames, NIL, playing time, all that stuff. I'm not sure if that's going to be a better fit. Now, you look at Jerrell Colbert, I think that for him to be he could have played in the Big 12 as a center. He could have, but I think we all could maybe agree that he wasn't the best scorer. He was more of a rim protector. Dorian Finister's, he's kind of where he belongs now at Sam Houston State. RJ Jones, though, like he's going to enter the transfer portal because he wasn't really promised or guaranteed minutes. He saw the writing on the wall with all those guards coming in, and he goes and commits to another Big 12 school, right? So the grass was greener, but you mentioned Day-Day Ames. That's, one of the more frustrating departures. They're all frustrating in their own different ways. You hate to see a guy like Jones leave, but hey, good for him. He's at a Big 12 school. He proved that, maybe the staff shouldn't have been going after dudes. Day-Day Ames, I mean, Virginia's still a power school. Don't get me wrong, but guys, I'm not sure if there was a whole long list of schools that were after Ames.
No, this was his only visit, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Look, I'm told that Virginia has a couple experienced guards. So you're going from a place where you started, and we're probably going to start again this year. I don't know. That had to be sorted out, to a place where, if my information's right, you're not going to start, period, unless there's an injury. And I don't think the money was a great factor either at the end of the day. I think what happened is they got in the portal, realized there wasn't interest. Nobody was going to pay them $500,000 like he wanted. $500,000. It's insane. And so he took what he could get. It's unfortunate. And I'm just going to say it again. Young people, be careful about who you hire as your agent. Make sure they actually know what they're doing. If they don't know anything about contract law, if they don't know anything about negotiating, they don't know anything that an agent needs to know, don't let them do the job. Don't hire me to be your plumber, okay? I don't know anything about it.
You've probably clogged a lot of toilets in your day, Fitz.
I have. So I know how to use the plunger, but beyond that, I'm mostly just full of it, not able to make it go down the pipe correctly.
I think this whole agent thing with Day-Day Ames, I think this is probably supports the argument that there should be a players association.
Absolutely.
And there needs to be accredited agents for players, because if you want to play in the NFL and you want to have an agent, your agent has to be accredited by the NFLPA. You can't just hire some Joe Schmo to be your agent. They have to be approved. So, obviously none of these agents right now, are approved by the NCAA by any means. So, a real attorney probably would be looking out for Day-Day Ames' best interests here.
Right.
Because
and not as eager to go earn a buck for themselves.
Right.
I mean, if you're a pro agent, you get like 3%.
Yeah.
If some of these guys are taking 20% of the NIL
or
more.
Yeah.
So if you got a car and you got a place to live, and they count that as part of your NIL or whatever they give you in stuff that's deducted from your amount. So the 20% in cash might turn out to be most of it.
Yeah.
It's crazy what's going on. And in the background, we have House versus NCAA that is going to settlement.
We will talk about that in the second half.
So. Again, this doesn't address collective bargaining and having the players properly represented. And so there's no movement on that front to protect the players or to let them bargain as a group. Crazy.
From El Camino Cat, what should K-State fans expect from David Castillo next season? 24/7 Sports lists him as a combo guard, and it looks like he played the 2 for most of the EYBL season for Sunrise Christian. Is he a quote-unquote true point guard?
Yeah, he is. Jacob Pullen was too. But we remember the offensive output. And I think that's a steep comparison. But I think there's probably a good comparison to be made there in terms of how they could impact the team. Remember this, Jacob came in with that great group of Bill Walker and Michael Beasley, and he started as a freshman point guard, and he sucked for a while. It was, I mean, Frank chewed on him like he was beef jerky. And so he learned as he went. David's not going to have that opportunity. I mean, anymore in college basketball, if you're starting a true freshman point guard, you might get fired because he's going to be going against grown-ass men. And this gives him, with Doug McDaniel around, gives him a chance to be more off guard and to learn how to produce at that spot. We saw it a little bit with Steve Henson going way back. They kind of protect him as a point guard with a veteran on the roster, and that seemed to work out pretty well. So I think David and Doug are going to be a backcourt for a few years, and maybe having more than one point is really the point, because they didn't have enough ball handlers last year. And now if you got 2 guys that can really run the point and break down a defense, you're in a pretty good situation if they're on the floor together.
I recently spoke with Clint Stewart about this, and obviously he's David Castillo's former high school coach. And so, I think kind of the gist was just obviously the recruiting pitch to where it's at now has changed a little bit. Like the role that was sort of envisioned for Castillo has changed after the way things went last year. And that's the same thing for Jones and Jones and Ames and Colbert, all these guys transferring out, right? That's the same sort of stuff, right? The messaging, the role, all that stuff may have changed a little bit, but Castillo is still a big time player, right? And so maybe he's not going to be starting, or he will. I'm not sure if that's guaranteed, but Castillo's going to play. I think we talked about this on Monday, right? Fitz on the Insiders, right? Like I think he's going to be maybe to start the season in between where Day-Day Ames and RJ Jones, where their minutes were. So 15-20 a game is probably what I'd expect out of Castillo. But you look at it offensively, he can run the point without a doubt, and he can also shoot. So that's not going to be an issue. But when you look at how small this team might be defensively, that's where maybe some of the question marks come in. How many, can you roll out there with 3 guards that are 6'1" and under, right? That just doesn't seem like it'll, be the best option. So we'll see where he fits in on this team. But again, this goes back to the stuff we've been talking about. There are guys coming in from the portal. So David Castillo's not guaranteed a starting spot. Not that he was coming out of high school, a year ago from now, but the minutes probably aren't where he thought they'd be when he committed. And so we'll see how things pan out. I mean, redshirting it's not going to be on the table for Castillo. He's going to play. He's good. He's great.
Yep.
So we'll just have to kind of see where things pan out. But that was something I'd share.
Good stuff.
Last question of the first half, also from El Camino Cat. K-State seems to be struggling a bit to find a big man in the portal. Who was K-State's last great big man?
Oh, yeah.
Great. How do we define great?
You got to go back. I mean, if you really want someone that could impact the game. Thank you, Daphne. Daphne had some input on that. Apparently, Becky's home for lunch. You got to go back. Jack Parr. I mean, seriously, K-State has always struggled to get big men. Yeah. I don't know. The
DJ Johnson. Does that count? Look, is he big enough?
You would take, at this point, you would take a DJ Johnson, Thomas Gibson type.
Right.
Little undersized. Sure. Jeremiah Massey at 6'7" had to play the post for K-State because they couldn't get a big guy, and he was really effective because he had the ability to defend much bigger players and also jump much higher than anyone else on the floor. You can find someone like that, they could get in there and be a little bit smaller. But I want to say this also, I don't think as good as the two teams that played for the national championship had it with big men. I mean, they're two elite big men. Those guys don't really fit what Jerome Tang wants to do. So he's got a specific need. And I'm going to be blunt here. I saw, a Will McNair appreciation post today and people saying, come back. He didn't really fit what K-State wants at the post, but he was available and they needed someone, and he played exceptional basketball at times. But they want someone that can run and get up and down the court. And they want to get back to a fast brand of basketball. They weren't able to do it last year because they didn't have enough athleticism and they didn't have enough reliable passing. And often when they got into the open court, that meant turnover. So, they're trying to drill in on a specific type of big man, and those are hard to find. And we've heard rumors of guys getting $2 million that fit that role. K-State ain't paying that, and that's insane to pay that. You better have a hell of a season if he's getting over $1 million. Double that, you better be an All-American.
Better be a national championship.
What?
Better be national champions.
Yeah, you better be the big guy that leads a team to a national championship. You were exactly right. Not a guy that averaged 10-6, 11-6 in the Big Ten.
K-State was able to win a Big 12 and go to an Elite 8 with McCall Mayween at the 5, right? So you don't need one of these game-changing big men, right? K-State beat Kentucky in that Elite 8 run just a few years back with Jerome Tang's first season, right? Like Oscar Tshiebwe was a dominant force. He still got his own, but K-State still won the game. So, I mean, yeah, it's been a while since K-State's had one of these guys, but you can still win without them. If K-State can get a Big Gip or DJ Johnson on this team, absolutely, you would take that in a heartbeat. Somebody that's just reliable, strong, can rebound. They got good fundamentals, can score when asked to, but your whole offense doesn't have to facilitate through a big man. I know we've talked about this a lot on these shows, that you see those teams in the Final Four, those teams are running through those players because they're crazy players. It's not going to matter what position they're playing. If they're a special talent like that, your team's going to run through them. They're
elite. In hindsight, Bruce Weber was a slow it down. Let's play Virginia type basketball. Have fun, Day kind of guy. I would have loved to see DJ Johnson in this system where they're wanting to post a rim run to get up and down the court. He would have been a blast in that.
How about Stephen Hurt getting out and shooting 3?
Yeah. Boy, I forgot about him. Man.
Blast from the past.
Yeah, that's a good way to end the first half of this podcast. This is the Powercat Podcast, and we are sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor, and we'll be back after this break.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Please visit the Fridge Wholesale Liquor, located at the corner of Claflin and Westport Road in Manhattan, Kansas.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to the Cats and Dogs studio.
Welcome back to the Powercat Podcast. Fitz, Zach, and Gills, and 2 sleepy dogs. Daphne is having a lick fest down there on the floor. She went to the groomer that did her nails. She doesn't like that. Nobody wants to be held hostage and have their nails clipped, except for Gilbert. He likes that. He's a weirdo. This is the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you check out the Fridge every time you're in town. Football season isn't far away. Think about this. Wrap your mind around this. The Big 12 will become 16 members in just 6 weeks. It's almost here. It's almost here. And we still, Ryan Gilbert, don't have information on Big 12 Media Days that I know of. I don't think
poker, gambling. Pool,
I know we
alcohol,
don't know
drink.
where you're gonna go. I mean, let me just appeal to the Big 12. Big 12, Ryan Gilbert has plans, or he wants to make the plans. He needs to know where's the best poker room. He wants to know where the closest bar is.
Like he already knows.
Just go with me.
Okay.
And he doesn't have that information. Why? Because you don't care. You don't give us what we need, which is an official invite to the party of the century. 16 football coaches on a football field that none of these teams will play on this season, all talking about their teams and why they're disrespected. I'm going to start calling it the Neil Brown Award for every coach that plays the disrespect card and then backs it up. But more importantly, Ryan Gilbert. What are you going to do to help Ryan Gilbert? Hey, Gills, what if we started a GoFundMe for your gambling?
Oh, I don't need money from people. I'm going to win no matter what.
Okay.
It's a guarantee. It's a lock.
Yeah.
A lock. Like all gambling.
Poker player I've ever seen.
I haven't watched poker, so yes, you would be.
Put the pink slip down on your little Audi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's your questions from Wabash Station.
From Ohio Powercat, will the Batcats make the NCAA tournament this year? And if they don't, will Pete Hughes be on the hot seat?
Hot seat? No. Didn't he just get an extension or something?
I don't think he's on the hot seat. It's very frustrating, again, if they don't make it. But currently, D1 Baseball has them as a 3 seed in the Santa Barbara region. Santa Barbara is the 15 national seed, so that means that K-State's a pretty weak 3 seed right now based on that assessment. So probably need to win a couple games this weekend. Probably need to win a game in the Big 12 tournament to solidify themselves, I guess. But yeah, it's not horrible. It's better. They're in a better position than they were last season.
They fixed their schedule.
They fixed their schedule.
Yeah.
So
that's what held them back last year. Is they just didn't have the analytics to get them into the field. And they went out and scheduled better. And look at this. Are they better? Maybe, the talent wise they are, but their pitching on Sundays is breaking down, and they're also just not fielding the ball like the way they should. So maybe they'll pull it together here at the very end and soar into the College World Series and pull some upsets.
Maybe. Baseball America has them as a 3 seed as well, but they're in the Fayetteville region with Arkansas, who is the 5th national seed according to Baseball America. So a little stronger of a 3 seed there.
Yeah.
But they're pretty much a 3 seed. I doubt they become a 4 seed. I think 4 seeds are mostly your auto bids to the other conferences. Yeah. So they should probably be a 3 seed unless they don't win a game the rest of the season, probably. So as long as they win a couple games to close out the season, win a game in Arlington, probably going to be okay. So,
but still, this has been disappointing. This was a team that we thought would be a consistent top 25 team through the year, if not higher. They had the pitching, they had the dudes, and it just hasn't worked out that way. It's unfortunate. Anything? No.
I'm just too busy staring at Daphne. Honestly.
My computer is.
She's now moved.
Baseball America has frozen my computer.
We're having a lot of that going on. So do you not have the questions anymore?
I'm trying my best.
You want Gil to pitch hit for a question?
I mean, I can pull them up real quick.
Call me T22.
Okay, you can read it.
Purple and Black is back as Purple Rain this year. What does the roster need to look like to actually win multiple games this year?
Experienced guys. They just haven't been getting the guys that they need. When they had Jacob Pullen, they were pretty good. Remember the year when Michael was supposed to play, Beasley, and he was never available? Let's be honest. That's what they need.
They need Michael Beasley.
And you know what? I know Mike's off trying to earn money, but I tell you, this would be great exposure. Outside of getting into the NBA, tearing up this tournament, the tournament, is a big deal. It's turned into a very high exposure event. I'm glad they changed their name, though. I never understood Purple and Black.
I appreciate them changing.
Daphne didn't either.
Daphne didn't get it either.
Their name. I'm so excited that the Colorado Rockies and the TCU Horned Frogs are no longer the Kansas State Wildcats TBT team.
Yeah, black's just not a color. Once in a while, I guess that a lot of those guys did have a set of black
I guess the era
of
these teams, they did wear black frequently, but no, they are purple.
Yeah,
they're little purple Puma basketball uniforms that they get to wear. I wonder if weren't they checker one year? They're weird. So. Yeah.
I'm all in on weird uniforms for that event.
Yeah.
But the
weird one get dudes though.
Yeah, you just got to get the dudes.
Sure.
But I'm going to be really blunt here. The last couple of years, there's been a lot of non-K-State guys on that team. And there's enough dudes to go get K-State players. There just are.
But also, if you're going to have non-K-State players on the team, at least get good ones.
Yeah. Make sure they
contribute.
Make sure they're, it's been crazy. If you can get a badass that didn't go to K-State, I'm all in. But a roster player, I think what's been the function of that is they just haven't had enough guys to play, so they went out and filled spots. And I don't know that sucks. It's not as viewer friendly for K-State people to watch when you don't know half the roster.
Was Jacob Pullen announced? Did we mention that?
He's the first one.
Yes. Okay, here we go.
This morning today. Yeah.
I did just see that. Yes.
Yep.
So he has committed, so to speak.
How did I miss that? Hey,
I actually had the tweet pulled up. TJ from Kwich had quote tweeted it. So thank you, TJ, for providing
TJ,
me.
I didn't see that.
The masses.
I don't have you on mute. I don't have you blocked. I just didn't see it. Yeah. Maybe I should. TJ,
I know that.
Got to turn notifications on.
Yeah, for DJ, yeah.
TJ is a special follow, very special. But like Clint Stewart, I don't know how that's going to work out. But last year, Clint Stewart was on the sidelines. You know, Jordan Henriquez has kind of been the mastermind of all this. Curtis Kelly was on the sidelines. They go into a lot of this isn't just a group of guys together and play. Like they're going and practicing, and they've got sets and all these plays and stuff. Like they're in it to win it. So at the end of the day, you just got to get the dudes, like Fitz said.
Right. You can run all the plays and be as organized and coached as you want. You got to have the dudes. I think we've seen pretty good evidence of that at K-State lately.
Next question's from I Like Pickles Cat. What are your thoughts on the House settlement, and can K-State hit the $21 million mark for the proposed salary cap?
Oh, it's crazy. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'll be blunt. I don't know how. They're going to have to find a way. I mean, obviously. But I think this will be also a situation of you can forget any immediate projects coming up, and they will probably a lot of schools will just get a bond, a loan to pay this off, and then try to work ahead, because there's a settlement on top of this. So the settlement's going to be the problem, because it's a double whammy here for a while. I don't know, folks, and I don't know how they're going to maintain it with all their sports. This could be the end of a lot of NCAA sports.
Yeah, I think the first step is once the settlement gets approved, I think you're going to see athletic directors coming out saying we cannot operate with the number of sports we have. I think for the first step, you're going to see the people operating with 20 or 25 or 30 sports right now. Places like Stanford, places, that just operate, Texas, that have sports in every NCAA sport. Right. I would love K-State to be that, so they could compete for national championships and everything, and finally deliver the school a team national championship for the first time. But the reality is you cannot compete in every sport. And I think the first step is lowering that number from 16 down to 10, maybe 8. They need to lower the minimum number of sports allowed. And granted, K-State, I don't want to say K-State cheats, but you did mention this on the Daily Delivery today. Yeah. 6 teams were ran by Cliff Revelto.
A total of 14, right?
What?
Of sports offered at K-State.
There are 16 sports. 16 is the minimum. Okay. 6 out of the 16 were ran by one guy, because indoor, outdoor, cross country are 3 different sports, men and women's, double it. That's 6. And then you had 2 golf teams. That's 8. K-State's doing it as economically feasible as possible. Right. They're in the right sports. Credit to John Curry for dumping equestrian and adding soccer.
Boy, you're going to fire some people up.
Yeah. Give credit to John Curry for introducing soccer at the right time to Kansas State University. But that's probably a sport you keep. You keep the sports that your entire league plays in. Mm-hmm. Everybody plays women's soccer. Everybody plays football, basketball, women's basketball. Baseball's iffy. Not everybody plays baseball. Not everybody plays volleyball.
Oklahoma State does not play volleyball.
Weird.
I still can't understand.
Weird, but and maybe volleyball's a sport that you tell Oklahoma State, hey, you need to add this, and you dump some others.
They're not dumping golf.
Not dumping golf. They're not going to dump wrestling. I mean, I think that ultimately, I think the conferences, the NCAA, I think they need to come together and say, we are going to, you are mandatory. You must sponsor these sports, and we will sponsor championships for these. We will also have a separate category if you want, but I doubt that they would want to do that. I think that you're going to see a lot of sports just reverting to clubs or lower level, NCAA institutions. Maybe you create an FCS, so to speak, for your golfs or your tracks. Just there's no money here. You are coming as a Division III athlete, so to speak. You don't get scholarship money. You're doing this for the love of the game, love of the sport.
I'm going to be blunt here. I don't know what the NCAA will do, if the members will actually vote to either erase that minimum requirement or to lower it to like 12 or 10, which I think is a good compromise. But this is going to isolate all those sports, and it varies from school to school which ones fit this description, that don't create revenue of any noticeable amount. I mean, like K-State baseball sells some tickets, but it's not paying for itself. Maybe baseball at some other schools, particularly in, like Vanderbilt, makes a lot of money off of baseball, money they don't spend on a football stadium or have it. And
so working on it.
Yeah, I know. I still like to poke fun at them. So I think any of those sports that aren't carrying their weight are in peril. And I've said it over and over, but the irony of that lawsuit is House is a former swimmer, and she might have just destroyed college swimming. But she'll get her
hilarious.
Money. She'll get her money in the settlement, because this settlement only goes back the 4 years of her lawsuit. So when she was a freshman, they attached everyone else to it, but that's all this is about. She didn't suffer any losses before she was a student athlete. Right. So this only covers that. So,
but I think does it go back 10 years? Is 10 years the penalty period here? If it goes to trial, it's going to be like a $20 billion judgment, which will be due within 60 days. So if the NCAA ends up taking this to court, or if House wants to take this to court, I mean, the settlement is, I think, very fair. I don't think you want this to go to court if you're either party, but if you do get it to court, I mean, athletic departments are going to be filing for bankruptcy, and assets are going to be sold off. You are going to see the collapse in real time of college sports. It'll be sad, but it will be fascinating if it happens.
Is Ryan Gilbert still there? Okay. I thought you were frozen up. You were just looking down. Honestly, I'm going to be really blunt here. I almost would prefer this to be such a large number that almost everyone in the NCAA could not sustain it. Just destroy the whole model. That way, Congress will have to act in some way to organize this and keep college sports alive. I almost would prefer if this put the entire college amateur sports model in peril and destroyed everything going on. You can't even pay for football at that point. Why? Because then Congress would have to act. And to get them to act on anything that doesn't profit them personally is a problem. But now every constituency will probably be demanding they do something, to save their college sports. There'll be a lot of pressure, and Congress needs pressure to act.
And can K-State hit the 21 million? Do you think that every year they can max out whatever the salary cap is?
I don't think so. I honestly don't. Now, keep this in mind. There's a secondary effort to bring NIL in. It's not part of this lawsuit. Keep that in mind, folks. NIL will still be a thing. There's no taking away the name, image, and likeness rights of these athletes. But part of this will be a better targeting that NIL is actually NIL and not pay to play. Because you've got players going out, I want to get $250,000 to go to your school. That is not at all what the court system ruled. And in fact, it's my understanding the judge has affirmed that this doesn't affect NIL, but it doesn't push aside any of the regulations the NCAA has on just flat out paying players. They've got to fix that if this comes. Again, this might be a good thing because it'll destroy the model, and then they'll have to fix NIL too.
Yeah, I think NIL as we know it today, if there's a $21 million salary cap or whatever the percentage is of the average Power 5 annual revenue, whatever that number is, you get to take a lot of that NIL money and you move it in-house. What is considered NIL today, just that money just gets reallocated. You're
very right.
So if K-State's at $10 million a year, which maybe they are, maybe they aren't, it's not a horrible number to be at. And if they're able to sustain it, you're at least somewhat competitive, because I don't think that outside of maybe the top 25, 30 athletic departments, I don't think that anybody's going to be maxing out the salary cap.
NIL was intended for Avery Johnson to do ads for a car company, a car dealership,
sell autographs, do whatever,
set up a website of Avery Johnson stuff,
and sell t-shirts. Yeah.
And here's the problem. Players that have, I'm going to be really coarse here. Players that have no name, image, and likeness value, they don't. Nobody's lining up to get your third string tight ends jersey unless you're related. They're getting paid. That doesn't make sense in what they've ruled. So I think we're going to see maybe Congress and the NCAA get together and find a way to reform this. But I'm going to stare right in the camera and be very clear. Unless you want the court system to keep intervening, NCAA, you have to find a way to collective bargain with the student athletes. You can't just enforce your decisions upon them with no voice, no real voice. Oh, yeah, you spoke, but we ignored it, and now we're going to do what we want. That's what keeps getting you shot down in the court system. Fix it. I know it's not your strength to actually fix problems. You took away that horrible candy issue that was going on. It was horrible. Cavities were popping up. Recruits were getting cavities. They're getting their picture taken. It was causing like eye damage from all the photography. The NCAA fixed that. You just pay attention to the problems, NCAA. Quit just doing the stupid little shit that you've been doing and fix the problems.
Gills, do you have anything to add?
I agree.
Thank you.
Last question of the podcast from Campy 3507. If one day college football does consolidate into two conferences, what does K-State still need to do to ensure they have a chance at being part of major college sports? Infrastructure, coaching compensation, NIL, winning, etc.
I love this question. And I'm going to ask my own question. If that Big Two structure is basically semi-pro sports, where you're not paying the players, whatever, $20K a year, whatever it adds up to, you actually pay them $100, and then you can pay them more. Because that's where I think they're going with this, is to actually have semi-pro sports. I'm going to be blunt here. Is that what you want? I know you want K-State to compete at the highest level possible, but do you want to be done with college athletics and enter a semi-pro world in which it's all about money? Because I'm going to be honest here, K-State's at a huge disadvantage in that department. This is an elite ag and engineering school that isn't generating the giant donors that some schools have, whether it's a doctor, an attorney, an investment banker, or a guy who starts a delivery company. It just doesn't involve that. There's some very generous and wealthy donors, but the bench is not very deep, and it's going to be hard to keep up. Not going to be hard. Folks, it's going to be impossible to keep up. So do you want it? I don't know. Zach, what are your thoughts on some of those things?
Counterpoint, if there's a salary cap, and if everything's the same, if the same structure of you can only spend this much money on this, you can only spend this much money on this, a lot of the money that has entered college sports in the last decade or two has been for facilities. You look at stadium expansions, adding of suites, things to drive more revenue for the university, yes, but a lot of the money going into college sports has been physical. And, there's not much left. Look at K-State right now. Look at the football stadium. What is there left to upgrade? Sure, you can look at the east side and say it's almost 30 years old and that, maybe it might need an update. That structure is fine. I think they've renovated the suites on the inside. Everything is as good as new. So there is no facility money that K-State needs to really fundraise for as far as football goes. Yes, basketball is a whole nother story with Bramwich Coliseum, and that's not the point. But, there's money that is still being made by donors. It still exists. They want to spend it. They want to help their university. And I don't know. Threw me off there. I don't think that they're going to take that money and go elsewhere with it now that the facilities are built. Yeah, now you can buy players. But if there's a salary cap and if everything's somewhat equal and fair and there's parameters that everyone can be successful to a certain point and there's parity, the only issue is you can't do a draft like you do in the NBA or the NFL. You recruit. You have free will, so to speak, as far as the recruits you go after. And maybe you take an MLS model, and this is going to be really weird, and if you don't follow soccer at all, but what Major League Soccer does, they have a draft for domestic players. So if you go to college, you go to Maryland or you go to Notre Dame, you can draft those players, and they have a super draft every year. Those are for your American or domestic college players. But on the other side, there's obviously soccer is a very international sport, and there are players on teams overseas that the teams would like to sign at some point. So what they do is there's a thing called discovery rights, and you have a certain set number of slots for your discovery rights. Like, let's say Sporting Kansas City, you want to sign Cristiano Ronaldo. Well, you use your discovery slot on him, and if he wants to come play in MLS, he goes to Kansas City. That's how it works. So essentially, you need to probably have some sort of draft and say, we are recruiting this player, and he's our exclusive player, and if he wants to come here, you figure out a way that, maybe recruits say, here's my 5 schools I would like to go to, and I'm going to visit. And these are these are where I want to go. And maybe you take care of the recruiting that way, and you have players, with agents or whatever. You get to have a short list of schools that you want to be recruited by. And, it's up to the schools to recruit and compete that way. And maybe you have, you're competing with 3 or 4 other schools if you're a football team like K-State for a guy. And maybe that's the way you go through the talent pool. I mean, something's got to change on the recruiting side if you're going to play this high level college football. Yeah. So, that's the only issue with making everything semi-pro and whatever is there's no restrictions on the talent distribution. You have to figure out a way to distribute the talent somewhat equitably.
We'll go with it.
Yeah, equally.
Look,
yeah.
When are the presidents and chancellors going to stand up and say, no, we're not going to do professional sports at a college? I don't know. Maybe they're just so starved for money and everything they will. I can't believe that there's even a push to stop making them go to class. What the hell are we even doing here? I don't want Kansas State to be a part of that.
Right.
I don't. And that would be horrible for my business because, as people have often said, well, if they drop down to the Mountain West, I'm out. Which I don't believe.
I don't believe either.
I think they would be disappointed, but they're still going to be fans. Oregon State and Washington State probably have a more motivated fan base right now than they did a year ago because they're pissed. So we'll see how it all plays out. Gills, do you have any thoughts on any of this?
I've got a few things. Number one, Daphne loves attention from Daddy.
Yep.
I can't stop staring at you and Daphne. You guys are having a lot of fun. The only thing that I'll add is Zach said there's no more room for stuff inside of Bill Snyder Family Stadium. I mean, I'm sure they can get a nice upgraded ice cream cooler up in the press box for us media members, but
that's true.
That's all I have to say.
$1 million right there.
Millions of dollars worth.
What in ice cream freezer technology could improve what is already there?
Like
More
a conveyor
options.
system to drop the more. I shouldn't have to get up to go get that ice cream sandwich. It should deliver it to me.
Exactly.
Speaking of portals, let's create an ice cream portal that delivers these things.
That should be the thumbnail.
Well, I think you're correct in saying there really isn't anything of urgent need, but what is new today will be outdated tomorrow.
I completely understand that.
And I do agree in an ideal world, they'd fix the east side, dress it up. Maybe I'm desperate to have more office space and a Hall of Fame space. I've often said that could be part of the Bramlage project. Maybe it's part of that project, that you build a giant facility that then attaches to the new indoor practice facility, but has offices and a sports Hall of Fame in it that would actually drive tourism, if you know what I mean. And maybe that's on the agenda. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a test here. As much as K-State wants to be free of state money and any control from that kind of, that set, and they want to do it the right way, at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of institutions that are going to need state money. Not like Cal, that just got hundreds of millions of dollars and still stayed in debt, just enough to pay the bills. I mean, would the state of Kansas allocate the money for K-State and KU to pay off the settlement? And then, maybe a little bit to help out with paying the bills. I don't want that, but that might be a reality that just has to be done. That it?
That's it.
Oh man.
Hi, Daphne.
I am, folks, if you're watching, I am multitasking like a true dad, taking care of the children with one hand and still running my mouth. Daphne's very needy. Thunderstorms do this. Doesn't it do it for us all? Thanks for listening to the Powercat Podcast. By the way, great questions this week. I love them. It took us in different directions, and we're probably going to have some topics that we can break out for our new quick hits. And that's it. We'll be back with the Insiders next Monday, I think. We might take a week off. I don't know. Gills haven't decided. And then we're going to do another podcast. At some point, I'm going to Las Vegas to celebrate my 60th birthday, but I planned around the podcast. So I'll be here for you.
Wow.
As I hit my mic. I screwed up the end. Damn it.
This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.